All right, so my exercise for the low back, hip, pelvis, core is a physio ball march. So this is done seated on a physio ball. You want to maintain pelvic neutral, and you're going to just be lifting up your knees. So you're going to be at 90-90 with your hip and knee, and you're just going to be lifting up and maintaining a abdominal contraction and trying to keep yourself stable um, while only on one foot, and you're just going to be marching back and forth. Typically, we give this to guys for any sort of spondylopathy or low back pain, because a lot of guys in those cases have weak, deep core and just a weak core in general, and a lot of times that's also associated with having anterior pelvic tilt, which is a result of tight quads and weak hamstrings and glutes. So a lot of times we're doing all those all together. So this is kind of a way to activate your hips while also maintaining an abdominal contraction that you're going to need to have functionally while you're doing everything else, because a lot of what you're doing is training how to use the abs. So I'm going to get into that video, and then we'll get into everything else. Okay, so typically this exercise is done in the strength phase of rehab. A lot of times you're going to need um, to be able to brace your abdominal muscles without having any sort of pain or anything. So, if that is still the case, then I wouldn't say it's functionally appropriate to be doing this kind of an exercise. So I would, reduce inflammation and increase range of motion in a pain-free zone to be able to get to this point. In terms of prescriptions, usually it's just 3 sets of 10 each leg, or you could count, one march on each side as one rep. To progress this exercise, to make it harder, you could do a straight leg raise instead of just hip flexion at 90-90. To regress it, you could just do abdominal bracing and pelvic tilts. Honestly, I would say that's probably a good way to start, because on a physio ball, it's pretty easy for you to feel when you're posteriorly rotating your hips and anterior rotating your hips and being able to find that neutral and being able to feel comfortable with finding that neutral and bracing. I feel like that's a really good way to get into it. So this exercise is pretty functionally important in terms of maintaining your abdominal contractions and pelvic neutral while changing your base of support in terms of what that would mean in sport. So if it becomes too easy, I would suggest discontinuing this kind of exercise and finding something similar that's a bit more challenging.